I'm Jennifer Della Quadri, and this is Subtle Shifts, the podcast where you'll learn how to transform your life from the inside out, one small, meaningful shift at a time. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the podcast. I have a special guest on this episode, Karen Freeland, and I invited her on because from the moment I met her, I knew that she was a perfect fit for this show because she is a perfect example of going through the subtle shifts method to create a transformation in her life. She actually shared her story with me after I came up with the method, and it was confirmation to me that this is a process that actually works, and so many women have gone through it without even realizing it. Karen is a perfect example of someone who was dissatisfied in her life, who knew she wanted something different, but didn't know what it was, and started taking action to get there before she actually knew the destination, to the tune of she completely transformed her life. I know I've told my story about how I did that, and I really love to have other women on here to be examples for what's possible, and Karen is no exception. So let me just take a moment to introduce you to Karen, and then we can get into our conversation. Karen is a life coach. She's a podcaster and a speaker who is dedicated to helping women change their lives for the better. She's written a book called Grab Life by the Dreams, and that will help you get unstuck, discover your true purpose, and create an actionable plan to achieve it. Her podcast is called Rock Your Reinvention, and it's all dedicated to helping you reinvent your life and take bold action. She's going to share how she took bold action in her life, and we're also going to talk about how you can do the same in yours. So without further ado, let's dive into the conversation with Karen Freeland. Welcome to the podcast, Karen. I'm so happy to have you here. I was so excited to talk with you about your experience because it is so similar to what I experienced, and I know so many of my listeners will resonate with your story. So before we get into our topic, let me just give you a moment to introduce yourself, tell my audience who you are and who you help, and all of those great things.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited for this conversation. My name is Karen Freeland. I am a life coach, and I really focus on helping women who are high-achieving corporate professionals figure out how to ditch those golden handcuffs and create and design a life that they truly love, that they want to jump out of bed in the morning and go live. I have a podcast called Rock Your Reinvention, and I am the author of 2 books. My latest is called Grab Life by the Dreams, The Essential Guide to Getting Unstuck and Living Your Purpose.
It's so important to have these conversations, and I wanted to invite you on specifically because you have that corporate background. My audience knows that my background is in education, and even though the desire that a lot of us have to make a shift and do something different in our life is similar, there's a lot of nuances that come with working in the corporate world that isn't really involved in education. So I thought, you know what, let's bring you on and have you talk about your experience and also kind of interweave in how you help your clients and your audience get unstuck and ditch those handcuffs, as you say, so that they can create a life that they love. So tell me, I mean, I know you've created some amazing things in your life. Take me back to that moment, as I call in my subtle shifts method, the call, where you were noticing, hey, things are not the way this ain't it.
Yeah.
Take me back to that moment. What was going on for you in your life?
Yeah, there were so many things, and there were so many little moments that led up to what I call the oh shit moment, right? Which is the moment that you realize that your time here on earth is finite. Like, we all know intuitively, like, yeah, I'm going to die someday. But it wasn't until 2018, 2019, we had 2 deaths in a span of like 4 months of each other in the family. And while they were in their 90s and they lived a great life, and this is like what happens, it was the end of a generation. So it became acutely aware that up next is my parents and my aunts and my uncles, and oh crap, me next, right? And I started having these overwhelming fears about dying. full scale panic attacks in the middle of the night, sobbing in front of the bathroom mirror. What am I doing with my life? I'm going to die and there's nothing I can do to control it. And me being basically a control freak at the time, right? Like that was terrifying for me. But
the
I
lack
did
of control, right?
Yes.
Like that's what so many of us overachievers have. It's like, I need to control. And when I can control everything, my life will be just fine.
Right, which we can never do. So we're playing a game that we can't win because you can never have control over everything. And so I did what most women do. They just suppress it, push it down. And the more I pushed down, the harder it came back up. And so I started finding myself acting out at work, just saying sarcastic things that you would never say to your leadership team, that you would never utter in a meeting. And it was this full rebellion from within inside of me that was like, Karen, you're not listening to me. This isn't the life we're supposed to be living. And if you're not going to take control of the situation, I am. And so it was like that inner subconscious just completely rebelling. And so there was a lot of self-sabotage happening at this time. But, you know, everything on paper looks great. I have this great marketing leadership role. I have my, I'm married. I have 2 healthy boys. I'm the baseball mom and the hockey mom and doing all the things. And on paper, it looks great. And I am crumbling under the weight of stress and pressure. And it kind of hits me at this point, like, I don't think it's so much that I'm afraid of dying. I'm afraid of dying without ever achieving my true purpose. And I'm afraid that I'm wasting my life in a soul-sucking corporate job. And I don't know what to do next. I don't know how to get unstuck.
Stop here for a second.
Yeah.
Because, wow. And I know that everyone in my audience can understand how that feels. Right? Like, what is the point? Especially as we enter this midlife phase. It's like all the excitement and novelty of being an adult is long gone, right? And we've all checked all the boxes. And here we are in the exact life that we wanted when we were however young, maybe even a kid. And we're like, well, now what? Like, wait, my whole life has led up to this moment.
Yeah.
And yet I still feel a longing and dissatisfaction for where I am. And what does that mean about me? Like that,
Yeah.
I can feel that in my bones. And so that, I get you. And that is that pivotal moment for you, right?
Yeah.
Like the acknowledgement. Like,
Yes.
this is not it.
And it's a hard pill to swallow. I resisted and resisted and resisted because it was inconvenient. Like, what do you mean? Like, well, I should maybe walk away from my 6-figure paycheck. I'm the breadwinner. How are we going to afford this lifestyle that we've created for ourselves? And it felt impossible to do anything about it. And it was a very hopeless time for me. There was not a lot of hope. I didn't see a way out. So it was very dark.
That's a really important thing to acknowledge, is that before any of these shifts happen, before any of these changes happen, there's a rough patch. And some people call it the dark night of the soul, right? This is where it feels like everything's falling apart. And when you were talking about the self-sabotaging behaviors, your subconscious knew, like, I need to do something about this. And if you're not going to take action, I'm going to make it happen for you in a way that you may not actually want.
Yeah.
And so when my listeners hear this, it's important to reflect on, like, where are you self-sabotaging because you're recognizing that what you have is not necessarily in alignment with what you're wanting.
Yeah. And one of the things that I hear from a lot of my clients, and you probably hear too, is like, I used to be able to handle this. This used to just roll off my back. There's this old ideal about how you used to be. And now that you're not responding in this way, you think that you're wrong, that something's broken with you. But what I always explain to my clients is like, this is the alarm bells. This is that warning signal that, hey, we're not on the right course anymore. We have deviated from the path that we're actually supposed to be on. So let's recalibrate here.
Yeah. And you could easily shove it down for a long time. But as you know, the more you shove it down, the louder that voice gets.
Yeah. And like you said, it just comes up at the most inopportune times and in the most inopportune ways. And really, I started to tarnish my reputation and my career. And that, of course, isn't how I wanted to go out, but I did end up getting laid off from my corporate job. And so that was kind of this other pivotal moment, right, where it opened up so much possibility.
Yes. So let's talk about that. So I like to talk about the call is coming from inside the house. As you were even talking about it, I felt it inside, and you made a decision to answer it. So tell me about the moment where you answered it. Was it enforced upon you? Was it actions you took? Tell us what happened for you then.
Yeah. So I did answer the call myself initially. And so for me, what that looked like, funny enough, is watching the movie The Secret. So I was complaining at work one day, kind of being really bold about, the chaos that I was in. And somebody actually stopped me and said, Karen, what would you regret not doing? Like, if you died tomorrow, what would you regret? And what was fascinating for me is I couldn't answer the question. I didn't actually know what I wanted. I knew all the things I disliked about my life, but I couldn't tell you what I wanted to replace it with. And that opened up this really exciting journey for me to go figure out, well, like, what would I want to be doing? What would be exciting for me so that I don't have any regrets? And through watching The Secret, there was this moment where Jack Canfield is on screen and he's talking about, how he got all of his books, Chicken Soup for the Soul, written, and that it was through action. He had to take action. So you can manifest all day long, right? And it's great to have a goal and a North Star, but you have to actually do something in order to achieve the manifestation of that. And out of nowhere, I had a pivotal, like a shift in my brain. Something actually happened, and it was a memory of a memoir that I had started writing on my laptop 10 years earlier when I was on maternity leave with my first son. And I thought, I know, that's what I'm going to do. I always say I'm going to do something, and I don't always follow through. I'm going to write this book. And I had no intentions of publishing the book. I just wanted to write it to see if I could do it. And it was this really exciting journey. And so while I was writing it, I started getting some feedback. Oh, Karen, this is good. This is funny. You should be on Oprah. Like, all these great things. And I'm like, me? Really? Oh, this is so exciting. So I hired an editor, a professional editor, and made the biggest investment of my life in myself, other than, buying a car. Like, it was a big down payment that I had to give to this editor to help me with the manuscript. And it was also the best investment I ever made, because it was the first time in a long time that I bet on myself, and I trusted myself that this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And so while I was writing that book, I ended up getting laid off. And it was, to me, that pivotal sign from the universe, from God, whatever your maker is, right? That, yes, Karen, this is the right path for you. I want you to trust me. I want you to keep putting one foot in front of the other and just go and finish this book. This is what you need to do.
It's so important to remember how actions they're everything, and inaction is also everything. And what I heard from you is that you didn't have an outcome attached to the book. You just knew, hey, this is what I want to do. This is my next step. So for you, that was your subtle shift. I'm going to start writing this book without an intention or an outcome attached to it. But in doing that, you were becoming the next version of yourself. You were writing your future without even realizing it, without that even being the intention. You heard that intuition, that nudge saying it's time to write a book, and you took action and did it.
Yeah.
And that led to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Yeah.
Versus like, I have to have it all figured out now, and then I'll take action on it, which is why so many people get tripped up and they just don't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's so detrimental if you wait until you have it all figured out, because there's no way on earth I could have ever figured out my life as it is today. It was not even accessible to me because of the way that I had lived for so long. I had no idea that I could exist in a world where I don't have a mortgage, where I wake up in the morning and my first priority is my kids and taking them to school. And then I come home and I walk the dogs. Then I see a couple clients. I eat a healthy lunch at my kitchen table, not in front of my computer, right? Like I can volunteer. I mentor a girl. Like there's so many other things in my life now that fill my time other than work that I just could never have pictured that I would write 2 books, have a podcast. I mean, there's no way. So if you wait, you actually cut yourself short and you limit your potential, because the sooner you just get started, then it's all about exploration. You get to have fun with this.
It's a curiosity versus there needs to be certainty. So that's where it's like that certainty, it's where you are now. You've already painted the picture, but you wouldn't have known what that picture was going to look like if you didn't first pick up the brush.
Exactly.
Right?
And don't get me wrong, like I need a little certainty, right? And so as a Virgo and someone who was the breadwinner, it would have been foolish for me to just walk in and say, okay, peace out, I'm quitting my job, and say la vie, right? Like I'll figure it out. I probably still would have figured it out. I would have been okay. But there were a lot of pieces that I needed to put into action myself first, just to know, yeah, Karen, you can keep trusting yourself. You can make this investment in yourself, right? And one of those early actions, so simple, but just tracking my spending much more closely and seeing a financial planner to get an idea about, what do I really have? How much do I actually need to earn every month or a year? What does that look like? And then he starts giving me the numbers and I'm like, are you talking to me? Me? I don't need to earn this much. Oh my gosh, I thought I was trapped. And just that little subtle shift of getting more facts about my financial situation was that it opened up new possibilities and it gave me the freedom to make some bigger decisions. So, and that's going to look different for everybody. Maybe other people, aren't going to be as concerned about the money. So that might not be the subtle shift that you need to take or the action you need to take. But you might want to figure out some of those things where the certainty may hold you back a little bit, and then you can debunk it.
And what I also hear is that you were bringing people into your life who could fill in the gaps, right? Like you're not an editor. You've never written a book before. So you found an expert on that and let them help you. And you invested in that, which was also investing in yourself. You invested in a financial planner, somebody who could help you get clear on, well, what actually do I need to make and what does my income need to be, so that you're not just feeling around in the dark. And you're also not overextending yourself in areas that are just going to take away from your area of expertise and the thing that is going to bring you more purpose and fulfillment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So amazing. So tell me a little bit more about after you wrote the book and then you started to create this life that you wanted. I know you're a coach now, but tell me a little bit more about how you leaned into that.
Sure. So I kind of was like, well, what else would I do to make money, or what do I enjoy doing that I could see myself spending, 8 or so hours a day doing? And I love working out. I love being healthy, fitness. And so I kind of had this idea of maybe becoming a yoga instructor, maybe working in a gym and getting certified as a personal trainer and getting to help women with their health. So I signed up for this free webinar on become a health coach. And I thought, okay, this sounds interesting. And while I was in the training, they talked about life coaching. And I was like, oh, wait a second. I think that's actually what I want to do, because I don't want to only help women with their health. I have so much experience in, the C-suite and in my corporate background. I thought I want to help women who kind of look like I did 3-4 years ago, who are feeling burnt out of balance, frustrated, all that good stuff. And I think I can do that as a life coach. So that's when I started to explore life coaching certifications, and I signed up for one, and it wasn't very expensive. I was just like, let me just see if I like this. And I fell in love with it. I was hooked, I got myself my own coach and said, let me see what this is like from, the other end. And I got a business coach who helped me start mapping out what my business was going to look like. And next thing I know, it was just like, I'm doing this. I'm a coach, right? It just sort of happened very quickly.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is that it doesn't take long if you are putting your feet and your direction in the way that in the area that feels aligned to you.
Yes, and you're not over scheduling yourself and
Uh-huh.
over extending yourself. And I think for so many women, and something that I did for so long is because I want to have an impact, right? That's part of who we are. We're like heart-centered people. We want to help everybody. We want to do all the things, and we want to live a fulfilled life and a full life is what I'm trying to say. So I just did too many things. My hands were in everything. And something very interesting happened when I started writing my first book was I only wrote the book. I suddenly found a million ways to offload everything else on my plate so I could just 100% dive into writing and editing this book. And it was amazing how quickly I was able to get the book out once I put all my eggs in that basket. So if you're going to make that shift, right, when you start to move in that direction, you'll be really wise to look at some of the things that are on your plate and figure out, how do I outsource it? How do I get it off my plate completely? Like, what does this look like to delegate more so that you can dedicate more time and move forward faster?
That's the release of things that are not serving you. So you have experts who are helping you with the things that aren't your area of knowledge. And then you're also evaluating, hey, do I have to do this, or is there, and this can be tough for us overachieving perfectionists, people pleasers, etc., women, shall I say,
Yeah.
to not do it all. And what does it mean about us if we're having somebody else come and fold our laundry? I had a friend who did that, and I was like, my mind was blown. I'm like, that is something you can do. You can have somebody come in and do your laundry. What? There are so many services and things out there if you have the means to be able to have that support, or even having the willingness to ask for help for the people who are already in your life.
Oh, yes.
Because they're just maybe used to you doing it all and thinking you're fine with it. But once you recognize, hey, you know what, I'm actually doing it all and I am not fine with it, taking full ownership and then having the ability to say, hey, could you do this? Could you help me with this? And people want to help.
Yes,
They do.
They do.
Especially if they know that it's going to help you, help your relationship with them. And that's where you're building your village and creating the life that you do want.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had so many moments with my husband where I have just sat down and been like, I cannot take on this mental load right now. You know, one of my kids will have a lacrosse tournament or something. And I'm like, I need you to schedule the hotels for this, this, and this. Like, here's what I need you. Like, I have to be explicit because he's not a mind reader and he doesn't know what I need help with. So I always tell women, if you have a spouse, you know, you get what you tolerate. And so you have to sit down with them and explain, this is why I need your help. This is how I need your help. And the more explicit you can be, the better chances you're going to have of getting that support that you need.
Exactly. And so many relationships are, broken or harmed by assumptions that are made. Like he's not helping me because he doesn't care. Right? Like those things and the resentment that can be built up. Whereas just having this open and honest conversation in anything, but especially in like, what do I need, and not expecting them to guess it.
Yep.
Like, you see me working on this book, you should just go do this, this, and this.
Right. And then they're sitting there thinking all she does is care about this book.
Right.
And she's not helping me do this, this, and this. Right. And so there's that miscommunication. And so, you got to sit down and have those regular check-ins. Like, hey, how's everything going in our relationship? And because the last thing I ever wanted to do, and I did it so much with my career, right, was put my family on the back burner. You know, so much of what I was doing, it felt like I was doing it for them. Like, mommy's climbing the corporate ladder so that we can have all these nice things. And really, all my kid wanted was for me to go back out in the backyard and catch crickets with him. You know, like there's this precious video of him and he's like 5 years old and I'm on the computer and he keeps coming in the house and my other son, who's younger, is videotaping him.
Oh.
And he's like, do you want to look at the rabbits? Come out. Do you want to catch some crickets with me? And I'm like, 5 minutes. And, this 7-minute video is just mom pushing him off. And it breaks my heart because I can't go back to that moment. And now he's 15 and he doesn't want to do anything with me.
right? If only we could go back to the, do you want to be outside with the crickets with me? I mean,
Yes.
gosh.
But we can't. And so I also can't beat myself up about that, you know, and sometimes when you go through these reinventions and you have these realizations, they can be really painful and hard, but you need to deal with them and accept what happened in the past. And then just how do I move forward so that this doesn't ever happen again?
Yeah. And that's the whole thing is you made a decision, you started taking steps in that direction. And as you were taking those steps, you were becoming the person that you wanted to be. You didn't know who that person was, but you had to experience and learn and have these conversations and learn how to set boundaries and become self-aware of your sabotaging behaviors. These are all the subtle shifts that happen in that middle part. So when you get to the other part, you're like, oh, I had to go through that to be able to get to where I am. There's no way I would have been able to access this in my previous life because I wasn't this person yet.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. And it is a constant evolution. I don't know that we ever actually fully arrive. You know, I'm still in this process right now of where I'm really starting to lean in more to the volunteerism and like, what is that bigger legacy that I want to live? You know, yes, coaching is not just for me, right? It's for others and to help them. But like, even beyond that, how do I have like a bigger impact? And so I've been doing a lot of volunteering with an organization that's aimed at stopping sex trafficking and educating our youth and going into the schools to make sure that these children understand the red flags and the dangers and how these predators will try to groom you and lure you away. And it just definitely feels like all of a sudden this is this new calling that, again, could not have told you I would be doing this 5 years ago when I was living in Jersey. And now I'm in South Carolina. You know, we picked up our whole family too. We had a whole move to a new place because same thing. It's like, wait, why do we live here? Do we want to live here? No. So where do we want to live? Let's go there.
And that's so scary to imagine. Probably if you would have looked back that here's where you are, you would have been terrified. Like, oh my gosh, but that's the thing is you don't do it all at once. It's like these little things that happen that are nudging you in that direction. And also doing things that light you up. Not just for your personal benefit, but for your legacy. Like you said, it's when I leave this world, how will I have made it better than it was before I was in this world? And that's what it's about. And that's what the fire is. That's what's going to get you past the fears.
Yes. And so I'm so glad you brought up the fears because one of the things that I notice in my clients, when they have that bigger purpose, when they have that bigger legacy and they understand the impact and why they're doing it, and it's not just about making money or just about, you know, status, they're the ones that have the best results because when things get tricky, and they always do, right? Like this last probably 12 months has been one of the hardest economies for small business owners to navigate in decades. I mean, even probably harder than COVID, if I'm honest. And so there's a lot of people giving up right now. There's a lot of people walking away from their baby, from their dreams, you know, from the thing that they worked so hard on because it's been so difficult in the past 12 months. But I think the ones that understand that bigger impact, like they'll just push through anything because it is that fire within, right? It is that important to them.
Yes, that is a really good reminder. It's not what do I want to have, it's who do I want to be. And how am I going to show up? And you be that person through the tough times and accessing that higher self that has it figured out. And I also really like to acknowledge that you said that there is no end point. We thought that when we were little, and that's what we were talking about. When you checked all the boxes, you did all the things, and then you're like, well, hold on a second. Now what the heck am I supposed to do? It's because there is no end point. No. You're not working for the end point. You're working for the evolution. You're working for the experience of your day-to-day life.
Yeah. And I don't even know that I totally knew that when I was first reinventing. I think I did think, yes, this is what's going to look like. I'm going to be a, $15,000 keynote speaker. I'm going to sell hundreds of thousands of books. I'm going to be like the most sought after life coach. Like, right? I think I had like this ideal. And then because I had learned how to, work through those limiting beliefs and how to really evaluate all my thoughts, I started thinking about this. I was like, wait a second, but I don't want to speak that much. I don't want to travel away from my kids right now. When they're in college, like, I'll get on the road all the time. That'll be fine. But right now, my priority is them, and I want to be here for them and still have impact, which I can do through things like this, being on your podcast, right? And still getting my message out and being able to help others, but not have to be on a plane. But I realized I was just saying I want to be a $15,000 keynote speaker because everybody else that I knew that was a coach or that was, writing books, that's what they wanted to do. And it's so easy for us to just latch onto other people's dreams and not even realize it's not our own.
Yes. That's one of the biggest issues that happens with social media is the curated, my life is so perfect, don't you want it? No, you don't want that person's life. If you're dissatisfied in your life, you need to figure out what you want for your life. And that's the work.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I always love to share like little random things though from my life that are trying to be like as counterbalance as possible. Like, just things that I can't even think of an example of. Like, I went to women's Bible study for 90 minutes on a Tuesday morning. And most people are like, wait, you reinvented your life to go to women's Bible study? Like I actually found that I really needed a bigger spiritual foundation and that I wasn't getting it just going to church once a week. And so that was something that I looked within me. I talk about it in my book, Grab Life by the Dreams. Chapter 4 is all about turning inward and really going back, taking the blinders off and just, going into yourself and go, what do I want? And I was like, you know what? I don't know anybody else signing up for Bible studies, but I'm going to do it because that's what I think I need right now. And I've been doing it now solid for about 3 years. And it's been one of the best things for me. So, don't look at what other people are doing. I mean, sometimes it'll give you inspiration, right? It might give you an idea, but then you have to have that higher consciousness to come back to the lab and ask yourself in your journal or through meditation, however you tap into your intuition, but is this what I really want? And if it is, what would it look like for me to apply that in my own way with my own value system? And the more you can train yourself to do that, the better of a life you're going to live.
That's the inquiry. That's the eternal lifetime inquiry. And there is no clear answer that anyone will ever give you.
Yeah.
It's always your answer, running it through your filter, trusting your intuition, and just putting one foot in front of the other as you go.
Yeah. And that was a mistake that I made a lot in the beginning. And I don't know if you've ever had seasons of your life where you found yourself doing this. I would ask everybody else, what do you think I'd be good at? I don't know what to do next. What do you think I should do? What do you think I should apply for? What job? But the problem is people could only ever see me as a B2B marketer. They could only ever see me in that corporate lens. There's not a soul out there that could have been like, Karen, you know what I think you should do is write a book. And it's going to be called The Ins and Outs of Your Vagina, a penetrating memoir, which was my first memoir, right? Like, no one on the face of this earth would ever have said that to me. And yet that was exactly what I needed to do to start this entire subtle shift pivot off, right?
Oh, I love that so much. And such good reminders and good feedback. So tell me a little bit more about, well, actually, before we even get to that.
Yeah.
Someone who's listening and they're like, you know what, what she was saying, I really resonate with this ain't it. What would be your best words of wisdom for what that person can do within the next week to set themselves up to start heading in the direction they want to go?
Okay. First thing, do one thing differently. Anything. I don't care what it is. Take a different route home. Sign up for a class that you've always wanted to take. Maybe it's a gym class. Maybe it's a hobby, a painting class, whatever it is. Like just do something different this week, something unexpected that you don't normally do. Go try a new restaurant, whatever. Because when we have a pattern interrupt, it allows us to just think and see the world a little bit differently. So that's a quick, easy one. You can just kind of make it a challenge every week to be like, well, what's one thing I'm going to do differently this week that might spur some inspiration? The second thing is journal. Get a journal out and just start capturing all of your thoughts and your ideas without any pressure to bring any of it to fruition or to actually do something differently. And why I say that is because there's going to be some uncomfortable things that will probably come out in your journaling, right? But there will also be some beliefs that you can start to tackle. So like, I remember one of the early beliefs I had was, I can't, when I was first kind of experiencing some of this, I thought, I can't get a job anywhere else. Nowhere else will pay me what I make here. And so at the time I was in tech and I felt really stuck. And once I saw that on paper and I thought, well, Karen, surely that can't be true. There's hundreds of thousands of companies out there and you think you can't get paid more anywhere else. Let's test this theory. And I had started applying to other jobs. I ended up getting a director role at an energy company, which is the one that ended up laying me off. But I made that initial subtle shift, right, to another company. And I got paid like $15,000 more a year. I was managing fewer people. And I was like, oh, see, that was a limiting belief. That wasn't true. And I tested it and I realized it wasn't true. So I just want you to start this journaling process so you can get some of these thoughts out on paper and then start to test them. Like, is that really true? Do I really believe that? Or can I find some evidence where this may not be true? And then again, it's just like turning inward and maybe coming up with a list of some just some rough goals, right? Like if money wasn't an object, schooling wasn't an object, like what are some things that you would gravitate to, that you find interesting, that you would like to explore with no pressure to actually, quit your job and go sign up, go back to school to become a therapist or something or whatever, right? That maybe you've always wanted to do. I had one client, she wanted to be a teacher and she was an she was an artist, so fine art. And she was in the corporate world doing like digital media. And she's like, I would just love to teach art. That would be so amazing. And through a lot of questioning, we found out that she didn't do it because her sister was a teacher. And she didn't want her sister to think that she was following in her footsteps or copying her. And it was only through this realization, through her journaling and through admitting what she actually had a passion for, that we were able to overcome this limiting belief. And it's like, are you going to really let that hold you back from doing the thing that you were created to do? And here we are 3 years later. She's got her master's. She's teaching in the Department of Education in New York. And like, she loving life, Yeah. All because she did a little bit of journaling and figuring out what she really wanted.
Oh my gosh, that's such an important reminder of those stories that we tell ourselves that we don't even bring into our conscious awareness because either we're embarrassed or we don't want to acknowledge that, or it's like, and that's the story that's just dictating your life and limiting you from doing the things that you may really want to do.
Yeah.
And I love that idea of doing something different. Man, that brings a little more flavor into your life too. Even if it's not going to send you in a direction that's going to be life altering, it makes life more interesting and more fun. I mean, why not?
Yeah. I mean, it was so funny because when I first started doing things differently, my cousin invited me to a hip hop yoga class in New York City. And I was like, hip hop yoga. I'm like, I think I could get with that. Okay, let's try it. And I had so much fun. I was terrible. I mean, I couldn't hold a pose to save my life, but it was so fun. And that's what made me think, like, there are people right now who are teaching yoga and this is their profession and they are happy and they look healthy and fully clothed, like they have food. The world is still turning. They've obviously figured out a way to get health care. Like, a corporate job is not the only way to have benefits. So why do I think that I have to fit in this little box? So just that little bit of going to a yoga class just opened my eyes to see maybe there's some other possibilities out there and I need to explore them.
Yeah, it gets you out of your bubble. And what's so funny about it is I taught hip hop yoga.
Stop it. You did? Oh my gosh.
Did.
You are amazing. You're my new hero.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I teach yoga. I like hip hop. Why not put them together?
Yes. You're amazing.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been such a fun conversation. Can you tell my audience where can they find you, learn more from you, get your book and all of the things?
Absolutely. So you can always find me at Karen Freeland. That's Karin, Freeland, FREELAND.com. My podcast is called Rock Your Reinvention, and it's available wherever you listen to podcasts digitally. And the book is available Amazon. It's called Grab Life by the Dreams, The Essential Guide to Getting Unstuck and Living Your Purpose. And it's going to walk you through my 4-step process, actually. It's called the EDIT methodology. And it really just shows you how to envision the goal, document the goal, invest in the goal, and take action. And it's a whole process that I give you the whole blueprint. It makes it super easy to apply this to whatever those goals are that you have in your life.
So helpful and so great that you created such a wonderful resource. I will, of course, be putting links to all of your things in the show notes. So if you're listening, you can just click right there and get access to her right away. Thank you so much for coming on, Karen. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I hope we inspired some people to make a subtle shift today.
Thank you for joining me. If you're ready to take the next step in transforming your life, be sure to subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. And if something resonated with you today, I'd love to hear about it. Share your thoughts, tag me on social media, or leave a review to help others find the podcast. Remember, the smallest shifts can create the biggest transformations. I look forward to hearing from you.